believe in God yet?
I don't believe in anything. Belief is a word that scientists shouldn't use.
Oh, man.
Things are either likely or not likely. I mean, I use the word belief, like many things. I fall in the traps of common language, but belief is just a ridiculous word, right? Because it implies accepting things for which there's no evidence, and yeah, it's either likely or not likely. I do have a God detector in my backpack, which I could have brought out. It still says no on it, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. And I know you love triggering philosophers, because it's very triggering
They're
to
so
philosophers.
easy to trigger. It's really...
When you say belief, because a philosopher would say that, belief is essentially how you feel towards a certain proposition, right? So if the proposition is God exists, you feel a certain way about that proposition. You either believe it or you don't, right?
Well, yeah, but that's got nothing to do with rationality. Although, as another philosopher once said, reason is the slave of passion, and that's probably true. I think we rationalize. In fact, I talked about it in this book, and when we talk about consciousness, that we invent stories to rationalize experiences that we might have, to make it seem as if there's some rational reason for doing things, and so humans do that. And but yeah, I mean, if you ask me what I feel, sure, I'm in that sense. Although I used to say, like my late friend Christopher Hitchens used to say, he called himself an anti-theist.
Yeah.
And I used to say I was an anti-theist. His argument was, if there were, even if there were a God, he wouldn't want to live in a universe with one. And I feel that way too. So my feeling is to oppose the notion of a God, but that means I have to be skeptical of myself if I recognize that my predilection is to not want there to be a God. I should be ultra careful when I make the claim that there's no evidence for God, because I know that we all want to believe in Fox Mulder's language, and so I should be ultra careful to realize that that's my preference. But in spite of realizing that's my bias, I recognize the universe gives no evidence for. That's all. That's the whole point. There's just no evidence, and there's no need. We talk. You like to talk about it a lot, I know, and I get dragged into it, but there's this illusion that somehow the God question is important in science, and it isn't. It just never comes up.
I agree.
50 years being a physicist, and I've never heard the word mentioned in any physics meeting.
Yeah. I think it's more LARPing. LARPing, people like go out, they imagine certain things are the case, and they play as the character or as the person who believes in a God. When I see how people who claim to believe in a God, the way I see them act, it seems like they will play that way when people are looking or when they're thinking about it, but when they're not thinking about it, they're just kind of doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I don't want to cast aspersions on an event. Yeah, I've been on stage twice with Dinesh D'Souza. I won't do it again. But
would you ever talk to Dinesh again, by the way?
Oh, I talked to him, sure.
Yeah. I
talked to lots of people. I mean, I learned from my friend Christopher Hitchens, who had the best, one of his good friends. He was a bulldog, but he was one of the most tolerant people I've ever known in terms of not canceling people because he disagreed with them. So I remember when I was at his place once, and we actually, before he died, he was going to have a filmed event, which would have been great, with one of his good friends, Antonin Scalia, okay, and me and him and someone else, and I would have liked to have that. But Dinesh is a pleasant fellow. He just spouts nonsense and does it for a living. And it's been very good for him. But we did debate on, what's it called, Intelligence Squared. And we won. It was easy to win. Yeah. I forget what the question was, but it was something about God. And him and a professor from MIT. But the reason we won, I shouldn't say this, but I will.
Do it.
The reason we won was that the non-believing part of the audience was trickier than the believing part, which maybe doesn't say good things about them. But so the way this thing works is that people vote beforehand on this show, and they, what their, is whatever their belief is, and then the program happens, and at the end people vote afterwards, and then whoever changes most minds wins. Okay? But it was clear that the audience, so what happened, of course, is that the non-believers all said they believed. and there's, at least that's my opinion of what happened. Anyway, it was an overwhelming change. And I thought they were just trickier. And I would have done that if I'd been in the audience. So anyway.